my name is Andrea Sheely, and this week we are on week 3. We're going to be doing video part D. The first question reads, what do you find most challenging about providing occupational therapy in a pediatric practice setting? I find it most difficult because I have spent the last 8 years of my career in a skilled nursing facility. I do not have any experience with treating pediatrics at this point in time. And I also do not have any children of my own. So just that lack of exposure to treating kids and working with them and their interests and their levels of development that they should be at. I also kind of think it might be a little bit difficult for me to be like very fun and creative just because I am not super up to what kids are at developmental wise. I can look it up when we're in pediatrics classes, and I definitely study it when we're in the pediatrics class, and we'll study for NEBCOT. However, I don't, like I said, have that regular exposure to treating pediatrics. I have been following a pediatric therapist in the school setting. One of the things that I've noticed she has a very good knowledge base of is her terminology when she is writing her documentation treatment notes. And I think that just once again comes with exposure. When I document in the skilled nursing facility, I feel extremely comfortable with the terminology I should be using, what insurance is looking for, what they need to see. However, once again, that lack of exposure in the pediatric setting, for example, documenting on how many correct letter formations they have or their fine motor skills just isn't my strong point at this current time in my career. The second question reads, what are some strategies that you can use to assist with these challenges you've identified? So one thing I have identified, obviously, is the fact that I have lack of exposure. And when I was working to set up one of my level 2 clinicals, I purposefully set up a clinical setting that is in pediatrics. I just know that I don't have that exposure, and I definitely want it. I never know where my career could go, so it's important to have exposure. But also, when studying for the NEBCOT, it's important to, have some familiarity with the pediatric clientele. And then the other thing is just using your other OTs as a resource. I have a great mentor in the skilled nursing facility, but now I feel like through following this other therapist in the school setting and doing a clinical rotation later on in the early fall, I will have OTs that I can go to and kind of ask questions and become familiar with like terminology, and they'll be my go-to people. The third question reads, what is a diagnosis that you have heard about that you are interested in providing occupational therapy services for, and why? So ADHD is something that I feel like I would be very interested in treating as a pediatric therapist. I just think that it is becoming more of a familiar diagnosis. I know before I was really practicing as a therapist that ADHD wasn't always diagnosed in children. Children were just kind of expected to behave and do what they were told to do. But now we're seeing that diagnosis a lot more, and it's important for us to be able to identify not only the child's weaknesses, but also their strengths, and using those strengths to the child's advantage. They're often very times extremely smart children. They just need kind of different outlets than some other children need. I also am very interested in implementing more holistic treatment sessions. I think that instead of always treating with medication, it might be beneficial to the child to teach them more meditation, deep breathing techniques, yoga, and just building up their self-confidence without taking their medication. My niece, who is 9, is diagnosed with ADHD, and she feels like she cannot survive without her medication. You'll hear her say things like, okay, I'll just try to be good if we forget her medication at home while we're out for a day out, and she isn't able to take her afternoon medication dosage. She really struggles with the fact that she can't be a good child if she does not have the medication that she needs in a timely manner, and every dose in the correct timing. So I think that would be like a very interesting diagnosis to kind of implement just different treatment techniques than that typical like medication dosage. And the final question reads, what is a diagnosis that you have heard about that you are least interested in providing occupational therapy services for? So, I never want to say never, because I had no idea that I would want to take a clinical experience in a school setting. I had no idea that I would ever become an occupational therapist registered, and I had no idea that I would ever be a director of rehab. So there isn't a diagnosis that I would say I never want to treat or I'm not interested in treating. But one practice setting that I would be nervous to treat in would be the NICU. I would definitely require more training in the babies and just a lot more continuing education on how to handle a NICU situation and how to handle working with the children and the mothers, and that's just a practice setting that I am not familiar with at all. Never want to say never, but I would definitely require some more training and a lot of following and a lot of watching videos online if they're available, and talking to therapists who are familiar with the NICU setting. Just a very scary, challenging setting, and you just never know what could happen. But right now, that is probably my least favorite that I would volunteer to work in. Thank you. Bye.